Hi everyone, my name is Alok, and today we are going to create a Python application, and then we will try to build a Dockerfile and then deploy it on a minikube cluster, and then exit through a NodePort or load balancer outside the cluster. So this is a very simple demo, but this will give you an idea of how the end-to-end workflow works with any application getting on a minikube, and then can we access it. Um, this this is for the beginners who have some knowledge of Kubernetes, have done some sample applications, but it will give you a basic idea end to end. Okay, so without further ado, let's start. So here, I will also share the link of this repo on the description. So here we have a very simple application which has just a Flask application, and it has just one root, um, the home root, um, app, and a test root. We probably don't need all these. We can just get rid of this, and we just need one. We even don't need this one. We can just say like hello. Um, and a very simple application, nothing fancy, and then it requires a Flask. And then what we're going to do is we'll try to run this application first locally, and then once we are able to run it locally, then we will try to deploy it to then try to build an image, and then we'll try to deploy it on a Docker on a Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so let's start. So what we're going to do is we're going to first of all install the requirements for this Python file. So we have just one requirement, but we will try to install it from the um, requirement file. And then what we're going to do is we'll run the main application. So let's see how it works. Okay, so it's just in the path. So I should be on a right path. So and now I can do so what does it say is it did installation for requirement, and requirement file just have one requirement, which is a Flask installation of Flask. So it did installation of Flask, and after this is running a cluster. It's running the application. So how we can access it? We can do a local host, and then we can see, oh, this is our Python application. So this is what it does. Just hello from Python. So what we're going to do next is we'll create a Docker file, and this Docker file will have just the same things. It will have an app directory, excuse me, and then what is it's doing is it's creating an app directory, and then making it a working directory, and then adding everything from this app location to this app directory, and then running a pip install for the requirements. And then once the pip is installed, it exposes 5000 port, and then after there it will run the main py from the app folder which we have created, and it will run through Python. So in a similar way as we did just now. So like this. So my local has Python 3, so that's the reason I'm writing Python 3, but it's the same command, Python, and then the main.py. Okay, so I'll just stop this. And then what we're going to do here is we'll try to create this file. So we are in app folder. So what we'll build this locally. Okay, before building this, there's another thing I want to bring it to your notice is because we're going to run it in a minikube. Um, we will have to bring it to minikube first, so that minikube can use the same Docker instance which we are. So what will happen is if we build an image now in a Docker, um, and then if we try to access that image in the minikube, you won't be able to access that image directly. So unless you have unless you run, you can also load that image later. But what we're going to do is we'll run the same Docker instance, the local Docker instance for the minikube, and then we will build the image. So how we do it, I've written all these commands here. So you run this command to, let's see what is the status of a minikube. So minikube is running, and what we're going to do is we'll run this command, which will start pointing to our Docker instance locally. And now if we run our Docker command, it will show all the minikube related images. So it will have all these minikube images. So now what we're going to do is we'll run our Python um, demo image. So we're going to build this image using the same Docker commands. But what is happening is it's getting this image, but it is adding it to the minikube. So what this image did, um, so if you see the logs, yeah. So basically, it was referencing to 3.12, which is the latest Python at the time of the video. And then it did create a app directory, did assign it as a working directory, and then added everything to this and install it. And that's it. That's what it did. Now the image is ready. If we do image ls again, we should see a new image called Python on cube with latest as a tag. Okay, so now we have a Docker image ready. The next thing what we're going to do is create a deployment file. So I have a very simple deployment file, which is basically just a service and a deployment instances. We can also use we can also refer to the Kubernetes documentation. Sorry. Um, So we can also refer to the Kubernetes documentation, and we can actually pick the same YAML file, but this is exactly same. So what we have here is version v1, a service, name of the service, a selector, a protocol, and target port. So what this service does, in Kubernetes, we have multiple containers, but we wanted to access all those containers, all those pods through a load balancer, um, load balancer sort of thing. So we have a concept of service in the Kubernetes where we access a service and which will give us access to all those pods. Because pods, we can't directly access those pods. We can, but because pods can go down anytime and can up anytime, so there has to be a load balancer or service which can give access to all those pods, and the new pods which are coming in or pods going down should not affect our service or accessing the service, the application for the user. So what I'm doing here is in the service, the name of the service, a selector, just the name, which is selected for the pod. So what pod should be selected? A protocol we're using, TCP, A port is what port we are going to access. A target port is the container port, what where the application is running on. You remember we exposed port number 500 on in the Docker file. So because this is basically end of the day is going to be a container, and the container is going to run on 500. So we are using same port here. So container port should be 500, and we are going to access that on a 600. And the type, we can either use a NodePort or load balancer here. Doesn't make difference for the minikube, but if you access it on any cloud provider, it will make some difference. But for now, we will use just a NodePort, and we will have to expose it to make a tunnel, and then that we should be able to access it. For deployment, the same similar concept. We can we can use a deployment here. Um, we can say we can actually pick these deployment files uh, from here. You can exactly copy paste this file, just change the names. But I have all these file ready for you in the GitHub repo. So what we are doing is the version v1 deployment name of the metadata name and labels for the deployment. But this level doesn't matter much because we have a selector here, which is basically the selector of the selector of the template. Yes, this label is what it is looking for to select the containers. And what does the container does, it's just a name, and we have the image what we have created late locally. And we are also saying image pull policy never, which means do not download from any other repository or a Docker repository or any other repository. Just use the local image. And we are saying container port is 500 the similar way, um, what we um, what we exposed. And if you see this error, there is an error showing. It says one or more containers do not have the resource limit, and this could starve other processes. Which means if you don't give a resource limit, a container which is coming up, a pod which is coming up, can basically consume all the memory of the node. And then if you have other pods coming up, they might not have enough memory to start, or to survive. So that's the reason we probably should give a resource limit and request. But I guess for now, for a very keep it simple, we will not give it. And this is just a warning for now from our Visual Studio Code, but this is not going to stop anything from deploying. So we'll use this image, a deployment file, and what we're going to do is we'll see the status of minikube. So what I've just deleted everything from my cluster, and then we say I've made a shortcut for kubectl, so I'll just use k get all minus a. So if you see, it's just running the standard kube proxy, code DNS, Kubernetes, kube DNS, but nothing in the default namespace. So if you see, and default is just a service running which is created by default as part of the minikube. So what we're going to do is we're going to deploy this service and a deployment, and let's see what happens. So we say cube deploy YAML. Sorry, I should be in the right path. So I'm going to come out and go into Kubernetes folder, and then I'm going to do a deployment. And what it did is it deployed a service, and it deployed a Python application on the cluster. So let's see its status. Okay, Get pods. Okay, so I have 4 pods running. Um, Good. And let's see the status of service. Let's see if we have a service. As we see, and I have another service running here, which is a NodePort, and it is a cluster IP, and it is exposing it on 6,000. Okay, so until now, what we have done is we have deployed an application. We created an application. We built it. We tried it locally. Locally, it was running, and then we created a Docker file to build an image for that application, and then we have used that image in here to deploy it on the Kubernetes cluster, a minikube cluster, and then we have just deployed it, and we have a service and the pods running, all in running state, all looks good. So now, how can we access it? So what we're going to do is we're going to expose this service. So, and it's going to give us a URL, and then we should be able to access this. So let's see. Okay, so now it says 127.0.0.1, which is localhost, and it has given us a port. Let's try this. Okay, here you go. So we are now accessing. We are here. If we try this, this shouldn't work because we have stopped that uh, cluster, and this is coming from the Kubernetes cluster. This is very straightforward. This is just coming. This is just a very straightforward application, a very small application, but it gives you a fair idea of how the Python application, how the any Python application can be deployed, can be built through Docker, and then how we can deploy it to Minikube. Um, yeah, I think that's the end of the demo. If you like it, please comment, share, subscribe. Thank you. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.